Hi, I'm Sam, and this is Sam Says. Today I'm going to be taking a look at Aeons End. Aeons End is a cooperative deck builder for 1 to 4 players, designed by Kevin Riley, and published by Action Phase Games and Indie Boards and Cards. Before I get into my review, I'm going to give you a very brief overview of how the game is played. Every game, the players choose to play against one of several different main enemies, called a Nemesis, and a random assortment of spells, relics, and gems is placed for every player to buy from. Turn order is determined randomly by way of a turn order deck, so you never know who is going to go next, you or another player or the Nemesis. The game ends with a win by killing the Nemesis or running the Nemesis out of his deck. The game ends in a loss if the city you're protecting, Gravehold, is destroyed, or every hero becomes exhausted, which is running out of health. Aeons End changes some of the staple rules you're used to seeing in most deck builders. The first of which is that when you need to draw from your deck of cards and there are none there left, instead of shuffling your deck and then drawing, all you do is turn it over so you don't ever shuffle your deck. This provides a great depth of strategy as far as when you buy your cards, what card you want to place where and why. In addition, it also affects how you take your turns. One of the other things that they change that you don't normally see in a deck builder is the cards that you don't play on your turn, they don't get discarded. You don't discard your hand at the end of your turn. They stay in your hand, and then at the end, you're going to draw back up to your hand limit, which is 5. So the order in which you place cards in your discard pile, so when you buy cards on your turn, in what order you discard the cards that you did play on your turn, it makes those decisions very important. I like that. It gives you a different feel of strategy than you would get in a lot of deck builders and makes for interesting choices, which is a term you'll hear me use a lot because I love interesting choices. If a game gives me that, I am pleased. In Aeon's End, turn order does not take place the way you would normally see in a game. Instead, it is determined by a turn order deck. Every player is assigned a player number at the beginning of the game, and the Nemesis has cards placed in the turn order deck. When your number comes up, you take your turn. When the Nemesis comes up, he takes his turn. Once all the cards have gone through, you shuffle and repeat. This makes for a very interesting style of gameplay because you never know when your turn is going to be. The reason that that's important is when you are playing your hand on your turn, the cards that you play this turn are generally not going to do damage on the same turn that you play them. Now, I actually like this because it makes for cool planning aspects. The main cards that are going to do damage for you on your turn are spells. Spells must be cast to your breaches. Now, your breaches, like I said, is where you cast your spells, and every player starts with a different breach configuration at the beginning of your turn. If you have an open breach, which is determined by a giant yellow card, you can freely cast spells there. No problem, you don't have to pay a cost, it just goes there. Now, if you have an unopened breach or multiple, in order to cast a spell to those specific breaches, you have to do what's called focus them first, which is you essentially pay 2 income to rotate that card, which focuses it and allows you to play a spell on it. Now, focusing your breach also allows you to open it later on for cheap. You can open any breach at any time, but the further away it is from a certain configuration, the more expensive it is to open. So it's a lot cheaper as you're going through to pay a small amount to be able to place a spell on it, or you could save up and do it all in one hit and open that breach instead of just focusing it. Now, when the Nemesis takes his turn, the Nemesis is going to have cards in front of him sometimes. It depends on whether you've killed them or eliminated those cards. But all of those cards have something that they do on his turn. So if there's something there like a minion or a power card, those are going to take effect. After that, the minion is going to play 1 card from their deck. Now, like I said, one of the ways you can win is by running the Nemesis out of his deck. Turn order plays a huge part in trying to play this game well because some of these minions that are coming out and doing stuff at the very beginning of the Nemesis turn can do really bad things and just hose you. Same with the powers, and the powers give you ways to get rid of them. But as I said, you never know when your turn is going to be. So let's say that I have the income that is required to spend to get rid of a certain power card, and you don't. And we are at the mercy of the turn order deck. And if the Nemesis goes next, we're all screwed. If I go next, we're fine. If you go next, and then the Nemesis goes, we're screwed. So the turn order deck plays a big role in this game. I see that as both a benefit and a detractor. The main reason I see it as a detractor is it can totally screw you over. We can look at it and say, hey, I have the stuff to be able to beat this power card or kill this minion before he goes again. But if my turn order card isn't pulled, then we all suffer a giant defeat because I didn't go. And so even though we may have done a lot of really good planning to get us to that point where I could get rid of this power card, the turn order deck could essentially just say, nope, this is going to happen whether you like it or not. That frustrated me a lot in some of my games. It does even out, and sometimes, we'll get a bunch of really great turns in a row, and then the Nemesis will go. But it was one of the frustrating parts of this game, was having to deal with the turn order deck, and you never know what it's going to do to you. In addition, in a 4-player game, when you're playing with the turn order deck, it's possible that when we reshuffle, I could go first, and then everyone else is taking their turns with the Nemesis. We reshuffle, and depending on how the turn order deck goes through, I could be the last card drawn on the next turn. So essentially, I've gone through 2 full rounds of play and did nothing. And there's not much that you can do on other people's turns. You kind of just sit there. Sometimes you have to react and choose whether to discard a card or draw a card, but there's really not a lot to do. If you don't have a lot of players in your group with AP, not a big deal. If you have a couple people who are going to sit there and stare at their cards for 5 minutes, it gets old fast. With regards to player count, so this game plays 1 to 4. I will say, if you are a solo gamer like me out there and you want to play this game, do not play the true solo rules. Unless you enjoy walking into a game with a lot of hope and then watch your hopes flutter away as your hero is unmercifully and repeatedly beat into the ground until you eventually lose. If you like that, then by all means, play the true solo rules. If you don't, you should probably play a 2-handed solo game. This game works well doing that. I didn't feel that it was quite balanced for a true solo rules, but there's not a lot of bookkeeping that you have to do on other players' turns, as I said earlier. So playing a 2-handed solo game is not a problem at all and is pretty fun. With 4 players, I think is where this game shines. And with 3 players, you can work it pretty well. I think it actually decreases the difficulty a little bit with 3 players as you get a wild turn where anybody can go, which gives you a lot more flexibility with that turn order deck and when you need to play an effect that's going to negate one of his abilities. All right, it's that time. What worked and what didn't work? Let's start with what didn't work. And the answer is, for this one, the graphic art. There is a lot about this game to like, and it's pretty fun to play, but this is not a game that somebody is going to walk by your table and look and say, oh, wow, what is that game? It looks so cool. Because it doesn't. This is about as bland fantasy art as you can find, and they just kind of pasted it on. It wasn't that exciting. I do like having my game look good. I think in this game the gameplay overrides that not so great art and still makes it quite fun to play. Okay, so what worked? Overall, this game is really fun. There's a lot of cool things that they brought into it. I love the fact that you're not shuffling your deck, and the choices that forces you to make on your turn really provides unique gameplay. In addition, you are given a lot of different choices on your turn as far as how to spend your income. You can spend your income on powering up your individual hero power, which every hero has. Every hero has a unique hero power that only they can do. You could spend your income to focus your breaches or open your breaches. You could spend your income to buy relics or gems or spells. Or do you want to spend your income to negate this giant power that the Nemesis is going to power up on his next turn? There's a lot of choices you can make. I like that. I like being able to do more than just one thing on my turn. Generally, when I'm playing a game and I see, okay, well, there's one option that is obviously better than everything else, so I'd be stupid to not do it. And sometimes you're going to run into that in almost any game you play, but I feel as in this one, you don't ever have that moment because you never know when you're going to go next. You don't know what the Nemesis is going to bring out. And so there's never a perfect option of what to do. I love that. And so the interesting options that you're forced to make are they're just fun. It really boils down to it. This game is fun. Overall, Aeons End is definitely worth your time if you enjoy deck builders. It brings interesting aspects to deck builders that you're not used to seeing, and there are a lot of plays in this box. Just in the base game, it gives you a bunch of spells, a few relics, and a bunch of different gems, and several different Nemesis cards to really customize your experience. In addition, I know that they have 2 expansions planned for 2017. I own both of those expansions. I picked this game up at BGG Con, and they had both of them available there. So I have those, and I will tell you this box is big enough to handle them, and I can see where they're going to come out with more expansions in the future. If you like deck builders and you want something interesting, this is going to be a good game to try out. Thank you for watching. Once again, this is Sam Says. If you have any games that you'd like to see a review on, please let me know in the comments, and I'd be happy to take a look at it for you. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.